Okay. 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 Hi, Colonel Virts. So nice to see you again. Thank you for making the time to talk to us about your new children's book, The Astronaut's Guide to Leaving the Planet. We are super excited by this, and I'm going to hand this over to the scoopers. Solen, why don't you take it away?
Hi, Colonel Virts. Thank you for sharing your time with us today. What motivated you to create this children's book, and what advice would you give an ordinary kid who wants to be an astronaut?
Well, I was motivated to write this book because when I was a kid, the first book I ever read was one of those, they call them board books when you're not even in kindergarten with one line per page and they're cardboard. I read a book about Apollo, and that's what got me excited about being an astronaut. And then when I was 13, I read a book called The Right Stuff, which was about the early astronauts and Chuck Yeager. And so that taught me how to become an astronaut. So reading has been a super important part of my life as an adult, but even as a kid, it was a big part. So I wanted to write a book to help modern day, elementary and middle school kids get inspired about space and science. And my advice that I have for everybody, young and old, is don't tell yourself no. If there's a dream that you have, don't tell yourself no. Tell yourself yes if. And the bigger the dream, the bigger that if. Like if you want to be a doctor, you could be a doctor if you do well in school and you go to college and you take the MCAT test, and there's a lot of things you have to do. But that first step is super important. Don't tell yourself no.
Cool. Hi, Colonel Virts. I'm Charlie, and I'm so excited by this opportunity and to ask you a few questions today.
Glad to talk to you, Charlie.
Oh, hi. In your book, you wrote that you love photography, and I know you took lots of photos in space on the Endeavour and the International Space Station, and I'm wondering if you ever took photos of the Endeavour as she made her iconic journey through the streets of Los Angeles on her way home to the California Science Center.
So I have taken pictures of Endeavour at the California Science Center. I took pictures at the Los Angeles airport. I just landed in Los Angeles today, and they have those pictures of Endeavour in the airport. But during that journey, I did not. I took pictures on the launch pad. When I was on the space station, I took pictures of Endeavour in space, but I did not get it on that very cool journey when they drove it through the streets of Los Angeles. I think Toyota did a commercial about it. That was really cool. I missed that.
I know you wrote that astronauts speak various languages. How many do you speak, and does space have one universal language?
That's a great question. English is one. NASA and Air Force are others. There's lots of acronyms that you have to learn there, so that's kind of their own language. I speak French pretty well. I learned French in school. I minored in French, and then I actually lived in France when I was at the Air Force Academy, so I could get along pretty good in French. I learned Russia as part of my NASA training, but the Russian language is very difficult. It's not French. It's a lot harder. So I can have a conversation, but not a super good one. And then I learned a little bit of German when I lived in Germany, but really French and sort of Russian are the two foreign languages I speak.
Cool. I'm actually learning French in school right now, which is pretty cool.
It's important. And I'll say your question about what the languages of space. On the space station, it's English, but if you launch on a Russian Soyuz, it's in Russian. If you're down on the Russian segment, that's in Russian. Of course, China has a big space program, so their language is obviously Chinese, Mandarin Chinese. So it kind of depends on who the big dog is. Whatever the main country is, that's going to be the language you have to learn.
Awesome. My next question is, when you were sightseeing from space, what were the most profound images you saw? And do you have a favorite photo that you took?
I took a lot of pictures. They told me I took the most ever pictures, over 300,000. It's hard to say what my favorite is. There's one that I took of the Northern Lights. It was a time lapse. I probably took several hundred pictures on a bracket in a row and turned it into a video. And that was really special. But I love so many. I have as my background is the sunrise and sunset. I took so many sunrise and sunset pictures. I could go on. I do speaking kind of for a living now, and I talked for an hour, hour and a half, just showing all the different photos and videos that I took. It's hard to pick just one.
For my next question, I'm gonna ask, would you ever go back to space in the future with your family on a commercial flight?
That's a great question. When I left NASA, I said there was other things I wanted to do down here on Earth. But I always said, I would go back if I could make a movie. So I don't think I would take my family. My family really was not interested. Space was just not their thing. But I love filmmaking. That's what I'm here in LA to do this week, actually. So I think if I had a chance to make a movie, I would do that.
My next question is, what was it like to give your fellow astronaut a haircut in space?
Very stressful. The men on the crew, that was very easy. You put number 2 on the trimmers and plug the vacuum cleaner in, and you got a haircut in 30 seconds. But for Samantha Cristoforetti, who's a woman, it was very stressful. So, and there are lots of women fly in space. They always just let their hair grow long. They put it up in a ponytail. It's not a big deal. Samantha wanted a proper haircut, so I had to learn how to cut women's hair, which is not something I ever thought I would have to do.
How did the Challenger explosion impact your feelings about going to outer space? And were you ever afraid up there when something went wrong?
Challenger happened when I was a freshman at the Air Force Academy, and it was pretty traumatic. You didn't think that the space shuttle was ever going to blow up, and then it did. And then when we learned about what happened, it was pretty obvious that NASA made some really glaring mistakes. So that kind of rattled your confidence a little bit. But I know after Challenger, they made a big effort to improve the culture so they wouldn't have that problem again. And then 17 years later, they had the same exact problem that happened on the Columbia shuttle. It was foam versus solid rocket motor O-ring, but it was really the same, like personal, human problem of the bosses not listening to the engineers. So it was definitely a big question that I had to face. Like, am I willing to trust these people? And I worked with these people, and I was friends with them, and I knew them. And so I know after Columbia, when NASA went through a really tough period of, introspection, of looking at themselves and really trying to fix the safety culture that had gone wrong. And I think they did in the years after Columbia. So it was tough. It's one of those things that you can't worry about it. If you like, worrying about it doesn't do you any good, because there's nothing you can change. Literally, you either have to just trust them, and if something goes wrong, it goes wrong. But you can't, there's no way that any human could possibly check on everything that might go wrong. They said the shuttle had 5 million parts, so there's no way you could check on 5 million different things to make sure they were all safe.
My next question is, the rush of going into space must give you so much adrenaline and excitement. And is there anything on Earth that could amount to that? And like, for example, do you play any extreme sports?
I don't. I drive like a grandma. So if I'm gonna do something risky, I'll do it. I mean, I flew F-16s over Iraq. I was a test pilot. I was an astronaut. If it's worth it, if there's a mission that needs to be done, for F-16s, that was something that had to be done, so I was willing to do it. But I'm not really a thrill seeker at all. In fact, when I was going through applications of people who were applying to be an astronaut, I never wanted the thrill seekers, like base jumpers and wingsuiters and that kind of stuff. That's not the guy you want to be in space with. You want to be in space with somebody they'll take risks and they'll be cool under pressure if they need to, but they won't just be careless under pressure.
What would you like kids around the world to know about your book?
The Astronaut's Guide to Leaving the Planet, I think, is a really fun book. It takes you through the early history of space travel, and then training, and then launch, and then life in space, and spacewalks, and then landing. So it walks you through a whole space mission from start to end. There's some cool kid activities that, like, how can you feel weightlessness on Earth? Or what kind of physical training do astronauts do? Like, what are some exercises that kids could do? It's illustrated, so it's kind of fun. It's not just like a really dense word book. And it's, it's from probably, if you're a strong reader, early elementary, but it's really for older ages, 10 through 12, maybe late elementary, middle school, or adults. My parents, I've had adults read it and they're like, oh, this is really good. So it's for a wide range of any kid that you don't even have to want to be an astronaut. You just might be interested in exploration or adventure or science. It's a fun book to read. When I was a kid, I loved reading. I read a lot, but I liked reading what I liked reading. I didn't want to read necessarily what we had to read in English class. And I didn't like Shakespeare and all those kind of books, but I really loved reading about mountain climbing and astronauts and that kind of stuff. So it's one of those books that if you don't like reading some of the other stuff that you have to read, this might be one that would be fun to read.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you so much for answering these. Now we're going to get to a quick lightning round where we rapid fire questions.
I can't wait.
All right, here's the first one. Did you ever dress up as an astronaut for Halloween as a kid?
I did. I don't know. It was sort of an astronaut, but it kind of looked like a robot. It was like this big silver backpack thing with lights. So I kind of thought it was an astronaut at first, but then the more I looked at it, I think it looked more like a robot. It was totally homemade.
Have you ever done a backflip in space?
And a front flip, but they're hard to do because you start moving and it's easy to bang into the wall. So you have to really stabilize yourself when you do that.
Was Earth more beautiful at night or at day?
Yes. During the day, because you can see colors. At night, you see aurora and city lights and lightning, but during the daytime, the colors are spectacular.
How do they choose names for different spacecrafts?
We used to name them after British warships like Challenger and Endeavour and Discovery. Those were all old warships from the 19th century and 17th century. Now they have competitions. So Spirit and Opportunity and Curiosity. A lot of times those are kid competitions that send in names to NASA and then NASA picks from those.
Well, thank you so much. Those are our questions. This was amazing. And we were wondering, I know you're in LA now, but will you be coming back to do any book signings or that we can come and support?
That's a great question. You'd have to ask my publisher, Hachette or Workman.
Okay.
Workman Kids. I just did 2 weeks of nonstop book signings every day it was really awesome. I talked to from 2nd through 12th grade. No, from K through 12. I talked to all grades all around the country.
Were you already in LA doing that as well? A book signing?
No, I wasn't. I was in Atlanta, Chicago, Austin, North Carolina, Raleigh, Durham. I don't know. Denver. I was in a lot of places. My head was spinning.
Wow.
I was on United Airlines mostly, some Delta, an American, a couple Americans.
Did you want to fly the plane? Just kidding.
Actually, no. I mean, I've thought about being an airline pilot. I'm a pilot, but there's other stuff I want to do. So I'm too busy for that.
And so what's your next project?
I have written a board book for babies about dogs. Super excited about that. I have a really cool illustrator for that. Now we just need a publisher to publish the book. And I'm working on some film and TV projects. I'm actually directing a short film this week. My producer was calling while we were on the phone, so I got to go talk to him.
Okay. Well,
that's why I'm in LA.
Okay.
And then I'm going to take some time off, go spend some time in Europe for a few weeks, and then back here to do some speaking. And kind of my job is working in the energy industry. I do consulting for a big energy company. They're doing energy transition things. So like carbon capture and geothermal and some other technologies, I'm helping them with that. So that's kind of my job that lets me do these other cool things.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. We're just going to take a quick photo of you, and we're going to put this we're also making we're writing 2 articles for the newspaper in LA.
That's awesome.
So, ready? Charlotte, you got it?
I got it.
Awesome. Thank you, Terry. It was, sorry. Yes.
Hey, you were both really great. Those were great questions. You did a very good job. You did a great job.
Yeah, you too. You're amazing as always.
You guys are rock stars.
Well, have a great time in the City of Angels.
Yes.
Okay.
It's sunny. I was here in March. I was doing the prep work. We were casting in March, and it was like raining the whole time. It was crazy. It's
It was
freezing
raining this
cold,
morning.
but at least it's sunny. Yeah.
Did you arrive today?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it was raining this morning, so
Oh my gosh. Crazy.
all right. Well, good luck with your film. Take care.
Okay.
Thank
See
you
you.
so
Bye-bye.
much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, guys, we're good. You did it.
My cheeks hurt. I was smiling so much.
Oh my